Hi, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice, and today I'm taking a look at this game, Heroes of Dominaria. It's a strategic board game for 2 to 4 players. I'm going to show you briefly how the game works, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my thoughts on it. In Heroes of Dominaria, each player is going to have their own player board that looks like this. As you can see, there's different tracks here. There's 4 different tracks, and all of the spaces on the top 3 tracks are going to be covered over at the beginning of the game by your wooden player pieces. I've got the orange player set up over here like that. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later and explain some more about this player board, but I just wanted to give you a quick look at it now. So the main part of the game is taking place on the larger board, the central board. This is a map of Dominaria, and it's got different locations designated by these brightly colored rings. We have some green locations, white locations, gray or black locations, red locations, and blue locations. There's 4 of each type of location on the board, and each of these locations you can see is connected to other locations by these dotted lines, and each of these locations starts out with a couple of these mana tokens. There's mana in all 5 different colors, and each location starts out with a couple of those. You're going to start out with one hero, which looks like this on the board, and you can see some of these locations have a golden ring around the edge. Those are the starting locations. So you're going to pick a starting location, and you're going to put your hero there. And once everybody's placed their heroes on the board, you're going to get started. What you do on your turn is, first of all, draw one of these Dominaria cards. This card is going to have a symbol in the bottom left corner, which is one of the colors of mana, also one of the colors of locations on the board. So since this is a red card, we're going to add some red mana, 1 to each red location. So we'll do that first. That's the first thing you always do on your turn. After that, you have the opportunity to move your hero. You can move them 1 space. So let's say we'll move over here to this green location. We can move across any dotted lines. And then you can always collect mana once. So you collect mana from your location, which means I'd collect all the mana from this location, and that would go to my supply over here. And then I can spend mana to do whatever I want. Now, early in the game, you don't start out with any mana, so it's going to take a couple of rounds before you can start to spend mana to do stuff. But some of the things you can spend your mana to do. First of all, you can spend mana to build a ley line. That's these pieces, these long, thin pieces in your color. You build ley lines on the paths between locations, and they have to be between the location you're on and one of the adjacent, like one of the connected locations. So we'll put it here, connecting us to there. Now the advantage of this is on a later turn, let's say if I put it here, because I was here, I put it here, and then on a turn, I want to go ahead and collect mana from this location where I'm standing. Not only would I get these 2 mana from the location I'm on, but I would also collect mana from this location because I am connected by a ley line. I can make an entire network of ley lines, in which case, if I collected from this location, I'd get the mana here and here, plus up here and down here. So you can see that building these ley lines and having a network of them is really important for collecting a lot of mana on your turn. Now, another thing I can do is I can build a monolith. If I build a monolith, then I could build it, let's say, over here on this location. If I was standing there, I could build it there. And every round, I would essentially have 1 green mana that I could spend because I built one here. My next one has to be on another location, and it can't be a green location. So I could build one here, and now every round, I'd have a green mana and a white mana that I could spend. And those would regenerate every round. You can also recruit another hero. When you recruit a new hero, they go on any location that's a starting location. So I could put them over there, for example. And once I have 2 heroes on the board, I can now collect mana only once, but from either location where either hero is. I can build from either location where either hero is. And I can now move twice. I can move each of these guys once. I can move him there and him there. Or I can move one guy twice, like that. So that's how that works. And then, of course, once you add your 3rd or 4th hero, you can move 4 times. Again, it could be split up however you want. So you could have one guy moves 4 spaces if you like. Now, it costs mana to do all of this, right? So, for example, to build the ley lines, you need 1 green mana and then 2 more mana of any color. To build the monoliths, you're going to need 1 fire mana and then the red mana, and then 4 mana of any color. And to recruit a hero, you're going to need 1 white mana and then 4 more mana of any color. So you do have to collect that mana. That's really important. And having the different colors of mana is also important. Now, as you go through this deck, which you're going to, again, each player is going to flip up one of these cards at the beginning of their turn. You're going to see that some of the cards, in addition to the color down here, which tells you what mana gets generated, you're also going to have symbols in the top right. This symbol here means that you add a Cabal token. And there's a name of a location up here in the top left. That's where the Cabal token is going to go. So we have our Cabal tokens over here, and this one would be added to this location there. So now a hero in that location could fight the Cabal, and that requires one of these black or gray mana. I think it's called black mana, but it looks gray in this game. And 2 more mana of any color, and then you get to claim this Cabal token. The Cabal token goes on your player board, like so, covering up one of the spaces on this bottom track. All right, so you're going to be doing that. Another thing that could come out of this deck is this symbol up here, which is the artifact symbol. So again, if that comes up, you're going to add one of these artifact tokens. It's going to go on the location indicated here. So that is right over there on that location. And now any hero on that location can collect the artifact. In order to collect the artifact, you need 1 blue mana and then any 3 mana of any color. And then you'll get to collect the artifact. That lets you draw 2 of these cards, artifact cards, and keep 1 of them. Artifact cards are worth points at the end of the game, as you can see by these numbers here. And they also have some kind of special effect that will help you out. Like, for example, this one, once on each of your turns, when you collect mana, collect an additional mana of that color from the supply. This one, you may use 2 of your, basically, of your move actions to move 1 of your guys to any location. So if I have 2 heroes, instead of moving one of them 2, I could use both of those moves to move one of them anywhere I want, like over there, or what have you. So that's what the artifacts are. They're pretty good. So you'd use one, pick one to keep, and that would be good for you for the rest of the game. Another aspect of the game is you're going to find at the beginning of the game, you're going to get dealt 4 of these quest cards and then choose 2 of them. And then over the course of the game, you're going to get to pick up more of these quest cards. Quest cards are, again, worth points at the end of the game if you complete them. And the quests could be different things, like this one is complete this quest if you've discovered 2 artifacts this turn. So if you discover 2 in the same turn, you can complete that quest. This one is complete this quest when you have monoliths on 3 adjacent locations. It's worth the points, and you also get an additional reward, which is you get a new artifact. All right, so these are worth points at the end of the game if you complete them. So you're doing that. Again, you have this player board, and another aspect of this player board is that at the end of the game, you're going to get points based on what you've uncovered. So you can see that each of these spaces has a number. And so you're always uncovering from the left to the right. And at the end of the game, you're going to get points for the rightmost space in the top 3 tracks that are uncovered. So if you've uncovered everything, that'd be 9 points for the heroes, and 13 for the monoliths, and 15 for the ley lines. And then for the bottom track, you're going to get points for the rightmost space that you have covered with one of those Cabal tokens. And you can also see there's other rewards. As you build the ley lines, for example, like every other ley line you built gives you 2 of the green mana for free. And then some of them have this symbol, which is the quest symbol. So when you cover up this spot with a Cabal token, you'll also get to draw another quest, which is another opportunity for points. And that's basically what you're going to do. You're going to play a certain number of rounds, depending on the number of players, anywhere from 9 to 11 rounds. And then you're going to see who has the most points at the end of the game. One thing I didn't show you in that overview is there are these 5 like open quests. These are quests that anybody can go for. They're represented by these tiles. And there are things like building all your ley lines, building all your monoliths, collecting all your heroes, collecting a certain number of artifacts, defeating the Cabal a certain number of times. And for each of these, there are 2 tiles. There's one that's worth 10 points for the first person who completes that quest, and then there's one that's worth 7 points for the second person to complete that quest. So there are those in addition to the quests that you have on the various quest cards. Now, I will mention real quickly, this game is based in the universe of Magic the Gathering, the most popular trading card game in the world. I have only the most superficial familiarity with that game, so I can't comment on whether or not this game would strike you any differently if you're more familiar with that property. To me, it's just kind of a generic fantasy, theme on top of this strategy game. So there's that. Now, the thing about this game that I like is it has kind of this feeling of building up to be able to do more in later turns. And I like games like that. I like games that have that kind of arc where in the beginning there's not a whole lot you can do on your turn, but you're laying the groundwork to be able to do, to ramp up to do a lot more in later turns. I like deck building games and tableau building games, which tend to do that. And this game is kind of neat in that, while I enjoy deck building games, tableau building games, things like that, in those you're ramping up by just collecting these cards. And in this game, you're ramping up by building like a physical infrastructure on the board. And that's pretty interesting. That's a, interesting variation on that type of game. So I like that. Now, that being said, I think there's a couple of problems with this game. One is it has kind of a strange arc. I mentioned how you build up to where you can do more and more each turn. And basically that all revolves around building up your infrastructure, mostly building those ley lines, but also building the monoliths and recruiting more heroes. All that allows you to accomplish more on each turn. But largely what it does is it allows you to collect more of those mana tokens each turn, which means you have more resources to spend, you can accomplish more. The problem is you start out with a certain amount of mana on the board, and then you add basically 4 more mana tokens to the board each player turn. But by around round 6 or 7, everybody's going to be collecting easily like a dozen or more mana tokens each turn, which means towards the end of the game, like the last, 2 or 3 rounds of the game, you're going to be in this position where there's basically no more resources to collect. You have the potential to collect a bunch of resources if they were there, but all the resources have been grabbed up. So you basically can do very little on those last 2 or 3 turns of the game. I've had situations where, there's a quest I could complete if I just had 1 fire mana, but there's no fire mana on the board. And so I'm watching everybody else's turns to see if they flip over a card that brings out fire mana, and then it gets back to me and I flip over a card and it's not fire mana. So now I literally have nothing I can do on my turn. So there's a bit of that at the end of the game where it ramps up. It's really exciting about round 6, 7, and 8. And then after that, for the last 2 or 3 rounds, it kind of dies. So that's a little bit, it just leaves you with a weird feeling at the end of the game is what I find. The other problem, and I don't know that this is necessarily a problem, people are going to feel differently about it, I suppose, but because a large part of the game is building out this infrastructure that allows you to collect more of the resources so that you can accomplish more on your turn, and because you're all pulling resources off of that central board, everybody's basically has access to the same resources. It's just who gets to them first. If somebody starts off kind of on the wrong foot and they don't make good decisions the first few turns of the game, and other people are, playing well and they're making good decisions and building out their infrastructure and putting down those ley lines and whatever, what's going to happen, especially in a 3 or 4 player game, is whoever's kind of starts off on the wrong foot there is going to get shut out completely. They're not going to have the resources they need, and they're not going to be able to collect the resources they need because everybody else is just snatching those resources up before they can get to them. And that can be frustrating. Now, every game has, is going to have some, people who wind up in the lead. But I tend to personally prefer games where, it's more close. It's like, somebody ended with 80 points and somebody ended with 102. It's like, okay, well, I mean, obviously the guy who ended with 102 is the winner, but the person who had 80 points wasn't that far behind, not, if that's the scale, right? But in this game, it's very easy if somebody, starts off on the wrong foot and they can't get their infrastructure going, while everybody else does, then you can have somebody who's ending the game with like 20, 30 points while everyone else is more than 100 points. So that can be a little bit frustrating for the people in the back. And because the board is only so big, everybody's operating in the same space, everybody's going for the same resources. That's just bound to happen unless everybody is playing very aggressively, making good decisions every turn. Nobody gets, off on the wrong foot, so to speak. And, everybody competes very hard. So unless they do that, then somebody's going to get shut out. So that's a little bit of a disappointment there. The last thing really I can say about the game is that there's just not a lot of depth of strategy. There are a few things that, you kind of learn in your first couple of plays, right? Like ley lines are super important. Definitely start out by building ley lines as quickly as you can, because that's going to get you the greatest influx of mana. Don't go for quests in the beginning. You start out with a couple of quests and they're both, they're worth points. And so you're thinking, okay, let me go after these. But it's really hard to complete quests in the first few turns of the game. But later in the game, it's so easy to complete quests. So going for them early in the game is a waste of time. You just want to hang on to them and do them as the game is wrapping up, kind of. So, there's a few things that you learn like that as you play the game. But I found that after about 4 or 5 games of this, I've really explored all the depth that there is to this strategy. So it doesn't, draw me back in to want to, explore a different route or whatever. I've seen what the game has to offer. So that's a little disappointing. Now, I can see that, maybe the theme would appeal to you if you're already a fan of Magic the Gathering. Maybe there's something about this theme that might appeal to you. That kind of building up, that arc of getting stronger, being able to accomplish more on your turns as the game goes by is cool. I like that. But there are a lot of other games that do it, I think, better, or at least just as well. The only last redeeming thing about the game might be that if you play the game a few times and you see what there is to see in the game, it could become kind of a thing where you just play it procedurally. And if everybody has that level of familiarity with the game, you can almost just talk over the game, right? It can become more of a social thing where you just enjoy the conversation around the table, as you take your turns and, just go through the process of playing the game. So if you enjoy that type of gaming, then this might be something that would appeal to you as well. In any case, those are my thoughts on Heroes of Dominaria. I'd give it a middling score myself. It's not bad, but it's not great, and there's just not a lot to it in the, when all is said and done. But again, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.